Welcome to Feminine Power Time. Turn off the chatter and tune in to what matters. Welcome to the place where we come together to reimagine the way we in the world work from the inside out by weaving together wisdom, leadership, and well-being to be the change we wish to see, to embrace our power as co-creators, to make our way through the now while creating the next. And that's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing here. So I am your host, Christine O'Reilly, and we are here in our 10th series, in a series that we are doing this year that's all around what I call the feminine leadership archetypes. And this is our counterbalancing force to what is going on in the world right now that has been ratcheting up its level of intensity for, 10 years, 20 years, some say 5,000 years, some say 10,000 years, some say 11,500 years. Who knows? But what I do know is at this time that we may not have control over all of the things, there is not a playbook exactly for how to move through these times, but there is wisdom. And you and I are also encoded with wisdom within us. And the feminine leadership archetypes are something when I was really pausing and say, okay, for this 10th season, what is it that would really support us? And the answer was, if I look at my model for elevated leadership, there are 6 different components, 6 different realms. One is personal sustainability, and another is power and presence. Actually, those are the 3 that we're working with this cycle. And so we're in our 3rd archetype, and I'm so excited to introduce you to her. I'm going to call her. But just for those of you that might be new here, if you haven't listened to the first 3 episodes of the series, please go back and at least listen to the intro one, because it will make a lot more sense. For those of you that are here and have been along with us, great, 100%. All you have to do, everyone, is press pause on the outside world and start to downshift with me. I am so excited to be able to introduce to you today the archetype, the feminine leadership archetype of the Weaver Connector. And we're recording this in the time span known as the Kiva time. It's November, the end of November, just that time, or just like 3 weeks in to the winter time, moving towards December solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is also, we're in the 11th moon cycle, which is connected to the energy of what's called in the feminine archetypes, the dreamer weaver. And in the feminine wisdom way, it is the superpower of connection. So and if you just think about what's going on in the world during the time of like November and December, it's really, we want more connection. We want more connection. So this just felt like I was kind of toying between 2 different archetypes, and this was the one that rose to the top for so many reasons. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to activate the archetype and invite her in, and invite you to invite her in this energy into your life and to how you're moving through the world now and how you're choosing to co-create and the decisions and choices that you're making, whatever rhythm you're in right now. And then we're going to dive deeper into, there's a kind of 4 major parts of the Weaver Connector. And I've actually been spending a few weeks with this archetype before being here with you all, because there's so much here for what we need as co-creators. So this may end up becoming 2 episodes. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how that goes. So that's what we're going to do. And I promise you there'll be some great esoteric embodied wisdom and also practices and inquiries. So if you do have a journal or a piece of paper or a notepad around, grab it and let's dive in. So before we bring her in, I feel like we have a guest. It's like when people do, guest podcasts. I feel like she's our guest and she's in the green room waiting for us all. Oh my God, we have to have a little fun, you all, and do some giggling, because it has been an intense couple months, and I've just been waiting to bring her out of the green room and bring her in with all of us. But I have to tell you, the thing with the Weaver Connector, she does not work in compression or time constraints or like pressure. She requires space. And I don't know about you all, but I have not been in the place of like, ooh, there's so much spaciousness. I just want to hang out and do some weaving and some connecting. Like it has been a very intense harvest. And so just go ahead and take an exhale wherever you're landing from the last couple months, last several weeks. Just take an exhale. I always love this time space too, because as we go into December every year, we're already starting the downshift now. So I think that's why the Weaver Connector was like, okay, I'll come out and talk to you all. Because as we go into the beginning of November, when we're living in cyclical time, which is the sane thing to do at this time versus try to stay connected to that crazy 12-month linear January 1st time matrix, but more on that later. We start the downshift in November, and it doesn't really feel that way at the first couple of weeks of November because there's still part almost like of the harvest. But there's also this pull, that's like, it's okay. Like, slowing down doesn't mean sitting under a Bodhi tree and just being like, I'm just going to meditate, or I'm just going to put my jammies on. It's like a different kind of activity that the Dreamer Weaver Connector invites us into during this time. I mean, she's always available to us. And when we spend a time span with her, which we're going to do between now and the next archetype, it gives us a way to kind of connect with her throughout the year. But this particular time of downshifting, so that when we get to the beginning of December, I always call it the December downshift. And so I always think this is like we're trying to get from fifth gear to fourth gear. And by December, the beginning of December, we start to make the move towards fourth to third gear, so that by the time we complete the Roman calendar year and go into January, we can go down into, that second gear to move into dreaming time, which the Weaver Connector really loves. So I'm going to invite you to bring her in for you the next couple weeks into how you think about visioning what's next for you. How you consider during this time span, leaving space open for this part of us. She's the one who sees the connections that we can't see when our mind is so busy just trying to kind of keep track of all of the things or being inundated with the outside world. She's the one who says, hey, pick up the phone and call that person. Hey, I just thought of that person. I should reach out to them. She's the one that starts to see connections between things, that opens up possibilities so we don't have to work so hard. We can do less, receive more, achieve a greater impact. She's also the one that tunes us into those higher level insights. She's the one who, when we talk about this from a co-creation perspective at a more practical level, we call it weaving the celestial into the terrestrial, bringing our dreams and our higher intentions in our path, like we're weaving them into the terra firma of this world. And she's encoded, and you're encoded, you all, with it inside of our own beingness. And I don't know whether it sits in our DNA, it's called our codex, but it's in there, it's within us. But it requires us to be in rhythm and harmony with the earth. It requires us to be in harmony and rhythm with ourselves, body, mind, heart, and spirit. And it requires us to be in rhythm with, whether you call it the universe, the quantum field, the super consciousness, the bigger field. I call it the field with an F. If you've ever watched the movie Bagger Vance, it's a great movie to watch, and with Matt Damon and Will Smith in it. And it talks all about the field as related to golf. Sports professionals use this all the time. Creatives use this all the time. So something maybe to check out. We've talked about it many times here. But why don't you just go ahead and take a couple breaths into these 4 centers inside of your body so that we can slow down our frequency and our vibration. So instead of being and vibrating at that mental realm, we can really get into an embodied realm. And so just taking a breath first into your body and just breathing into a part of your body where you just love to feel some more connection to. Maybe the base of your spine. Maybe allow your shoulder blades to relax. Also allow your belly to release. Soft belly equals smart, wise being, opens up our intuitive channels. And then maybe from your belly, opening up and breathing and taking an inhale and exhale into that beautiful heart of yours. And just blowing out and releasing any of the buildup of stress or whatever emotions just don't need to be here so that you can be in this connected place here now together. I always say, I know we use the podcast format, but I'm just feeling all of our hearts connected in this co-creative field together, here to find our way through what some call the great turning, in this time of evolving into this next era together, where no one has all the answers, but we do have wisdom to move through it and to just feel the knowingness in your heart. One of the teachings I love, the wisdom teachings, is that we were born connected to the people that we're meant to find in this lifetime, oftentimes connected through a red thread. And so just allowing yourself to feel those red threads that you're connected to, both known and unknown to you at this time. This conversation, this exploration today is an invitation for you to open up your heart and your body to more of the aligned, resonant connections that you desire and also that you need to move through these times, to manifest as your full expression in your work in the world, to support your foundation of well-being, to help you stay harmonized and savor this life. So just knowing that this is really a big realm of the body and heart, the Weaver connector. And then also taking a breath into that beautiful mind of yours, the left hemisphere, the right hemisphere, and the neutral space between, where the intellect and the intuition come together, the neutral mind, the positive mind come together to actually elevate into your spirit body, taking a breath into that spirit body. And sometimes what's called the Indra's net, Indra meaning eye, and it's like this beautiful spider web that connects us all. It's not the internet web, it's a different kind of web, but it is very, very real. You know, we never question, how does the internet actually work? But many people would ask, you can't prove to me how Indra's net works. And I'm like, well, kind of can. It's how synchronicity happens. There's many, many, many things. So just, feeling the truth of that connection through your spirit, your heart, your mind, and your body to land here now. And sometimes I like to just say, I am here now. I am here now. I am here now. And so with that, I'm inviting in the Weaver Connector archetype. You can just close your eyes if you can, or just bring your attention in as I share this transmission, really, of what this energy is that lives within inside of all of us, that is accessible if we choose to work with it. Weaver Connector. I see the connections between people, possibility, and things. I make connections that others don't always see, and from that I'm able to intuit wisdom and open possibility that would be invisible otherwise. I move through the world best when I am connecting with others, and I am connecting others with each other. Part of my creative power and success is what matters to me comes from my ability to connect with those I am here to connect with. I don't connect to get anything from anyone. I connect simply because it is the natural thing to do. I weave my creations into being through my connections to others, all life in the divine. And there are images that go with each of these archetypes. And this one is a female figure sitting on the earth. And you see grass and they look like bushes, but they also look like trees, almost like she's even bigger than the trees, but the trees are kind of below her. And all over her body, it looks like she's tattooed. And the tattoos are swirls, and they have peacock feathers at her sacrum. She has long black hair that's pulled into a bun. So the bun of the hair looks like a peacock tail with all of the things happening there. And there's water in front of her and the big sky, but the sky and the water are like a golden orange color. And she has a spool that is sitting to the right of her, and she's just moving that spool with her fingers, weaving, and weaving. And there's two doves that are flying in the air. And so the thing with the Weaver connector, and the thing for us, before we kind of dive into each of those spots, is to know we have to be connected to the terra firma. We have to be embodied. We also have to be connected to the field all around us. The reason we see her like this, and think of a time maybe even for yourself where you've like been in the zone, the creative zone, and whatever you're doing, you could have been baking, you could be no one made some wood tables the other day. It's like whatever creative act you were in, and you could just feel yourself in that rhythm and that cadence in what we call the flow. Which is why, like in the feminine wisdom way, we call what we do flow. Focus your life force on what matters. And we also have to be connected to like the possibility, the expansiveness, and allowing that to come in, because if we're in constraint, we can't feel and see all those things. So that's kind of what the image looks like. And so I'm just going to invite you to just kind of stretch out your body for a moment in some way, just to let all of this come in. And we're going to go like part by part here into each of the different realms. And as we go through this, there'll be different inquiries and practices and stuff. Like I said, there's a lot here. When I do my Elevate Leadership councils, we spend a whole month together, meeting twice, sometimes 3 times, diving into these archetypes. And then the feminine wisdom way, in the flow process, we spend a whole month with the superpower of connection. So we're only together for, a little over an hour. And so I'm going to give you enough to start to work with it and play with it. And then hopefully, you can join us for some of the things that we have going on in the different collectives that we're in councils that are happening. So let's start where we are. Let's start with the first one. So I'm going to presence this again and see as I read it what kind of resonates with you. Like what kind of stands out? Like what is this is true for you? Like, oh yeah, I really do that. That's totally part of me. And like, wow, that's not really activated in me. I'd like some more of that. So here it is. I see the connections between people, possibility, and things. I make the connections others don't always see, and from that place, I'm able to intuit wisdom and open possibility that would be invisible otherwise. So I love this part of the Weaver connector, and it's one of my strongest, and I always thought everybody had this power activated. As it turns out, not everyone does. It's actually connected to the 6th channel of intuition. So there are many different kinds of intuition, and I teach 6 different channels. And the last one is called your overview channel. And your overview channel is when you see the patterns and the larger picture and how everything seems to fit together. So the intuition, the wisdom, the insight, it comes from seeing the connections. Like if you only saw the different parts without seeing how they're all connected, you wouldn't get access to the wisdom. The wisdom, which is where the power, comes from, is only available if you can see the connections. And when you see those connections, you have the ability to see the big picture, like you can see kind of how it all fits together. And you usually have the ability to kind of break it down into pieces that people can understand. However, if this is something that's already activated in you, a lot of people who have the overview channel, they don't realize that everybody else, well, we all have the overview channel, for the record. Everyone has this ability. We just have stronger intuitive channels and weaker ones. But this one, people just think, oh, well, why can't people see it? Oh, it's clear. There's a relationship here between the intuitive illuminator and the weaver connector. And you see how that's linked together. And then that gives you that expanded perception. And you're able to see and find different solutions or different ways to look at things. And so then this overall pattern opens up, and that gives you this level of higher intelligence. So we often think everyone else can see it, but they can't. So I'll give you an example. And I tend to work with a lot of the people that I work with one-on-one in my leadership coaching and team coaching practice, is they tend to have this as one of their main channels. They just didn't know it was the thing until I go, oh, that's a thing. It's called the overview channel. And this is the superpower. And what they experience a lot is frustration that people, they're like, why, how come people not see this? And we can just look at this in the world of looking around of how can people not see how all these things are connected and kind of what's going on. And so if you can just remember oh, this is a superpower, not everyone has it, then we do, and we kind of lean into our practice of educate or illuminate, educate, liberate, and elevate. So our job as a weaver connector is to illuminate and educate first, to show people what we can see and to break it down into ways that they can see it, and then liberate and elevate. And know that it might seem like it's going to take longer, and it does on one level, but at another level, what we end up creating is so much better, and more people come along with us. It's a really important thing about being able to influence, what I call influencing in the round, which is the feminine leading. She's not what's wrong with you, dummy pants? Why can't you see this? And she's also not wasting her chi on the non-receptive ones. She's really what we're doing here, and this is the power spectrum I want to bring in here. So kind of remember the power spectrums are like kayak paddles. So you can even kind of make a little kayak paddle movement here. Weaver Connector uses that intuition and the intellect. And that intuition and the intellect are coming together to elevate into wisdom. So I see this also with a lot of people who are consultants. It's what I use as a consultant, and I just thought everyone could do that. My brain works really fast, and I can see all the parts, and then it's okay, now we do the thing, and then off to the races, kind of we go. And it's just not how everyone sees it. So just kind of maybe thinking about in your own life, as I'm kind of sharing some examples here, where might this be happening? It could be in your family system, could be in the overall work, it could be your work in the world, it could be with your team. Where is it showing up where you see things that other people don't, and or maybe you don't see the things, you're I don't know what that person's talking about. Then that's okay, because it's okay. There's not better or good. Then maybe what could you do to help support that person and yourself actually slow down enough, like the Weaver Connector, to illuminate, educate, liberate, to elevate. This happens also a lot, and I see this in the invisible things that we do for our families, our jobs, our communities, our companies. So remember the feminine leadership archetypes, why I'm also presencing them and why I created them is because they are the invisible things that we do in all the systems we work in, and we don't usually get paid for it, we don't get acknowledged for it, and we don't get recognized for it. And this doesn't mean just women. This is the feminine energy. And sometimes in the business world or other organizational systems, they'll call it soft skills and hard skills. And I'm not going to have a negative reaction in this moment towards that, but I'll just say that's a very basic. It's like junior high, maybe high school level of understanding of the feminine isn't just soft, and it's not soft and hard, because oftentimes these feminine aspects are much harder to actually bring into form and to work with, because they take a level of integration, body, mind, heart, and spirit. They take a level of trust and in being able to operate in multiple dimensions than just what are the numbers, run the spreadsheets. I work with a couple different financial officers, and they're amazing because they can do the intellectual part and get all the spreadsheets run and get their teams to do all of that. Like, they're functionally excellent. But the ones who are truly leaders and they influence, they're storytellers. And they know how to take those numbers and they know how to weave the story to help illuminate and educate, to liberate people from whatever is, causing constraint or interference or blocks in the business or the team, and then elevate into a better, higher level, more effective way of operating. And so that's part of what the Weaver Connector does. She tells the stories. And it can be hard, and think about this for yourself, is knowing how to do that. Like, how do you shine a light on those invisible things that you do? Like, just think of that. Like, think of some of the things that are invisible that, maybe you're functionally excellent at something, or you're naturally like a good listener, or whatever, it might be. But there are these other things that you're weaving and the connections that you're making that allows people to have insights and allows people to open their hearts and their minds. And you're probably not even posting this on social media. This isn't about how many likes you have. This is about the subtle ways you're making a difference all around you. I work with a company right now that just went through a merger, a creative-based company. And the merger's really kind of, I don't say it's not wrecking the culture, but it is causing a big kerfuffle in the culture. And creative people need a creative environment that feels supportive and allows for space. I mean, creative movie makers, creative people, they're storytellers. And so the person that I work with, a lot of what she's doing, her job is to create the culture. Create the culture, support the culture that really supports creativity to flourish. But she doesn't have a job title that says culture creator or, like cultivator of the creative environment. That's not her job title, but that's what she's doing. That's what she's doing, both from like the business side of it, where she's making sure the right people are in the right place and the right talent is being moved around and all of that. She's also doing it from the heart place of making sure that the right people are in the right place and that they have what they need to thrive as creative people who are also working in an industry and in a business, right? And so, we talk a lot about how do you shine a light on that? And how do you shine a light on that instead of like, I have to manage up and make sure people see what I'm doing? It's like, no, how do you tell the story of what's happening so it engages people in what it is you're doing, so they want to know more and they see it, and then these natural things kind of happen as a result. But if we don't tell the story, if you don't shine a light, then you do oftentimes remain in the dark, and people just keep, they just keep taking from us. And because that's what has happened with the feminine. It's like it just keeps giving and giving and giving and giving. But we're like waiting for someone to acknowledge what we're actually doing. But if we're not actually sharing the story and weaving it and making the connections that we see, how is anyone going to ever value that? So it's a dance between all of those things. And so here's the practice I'm going to invite you into into these next couple weeks, and really for the rest of your life, which is pattern seeing. Look for the patterns. Look for the patterns that you're seeing inside yourself. Look for the patterns that you're seeing in whatever ecosystems you swim in. It could be your relationship It could be your family system. It could be your team system. It could be your organizational system. And also look at the patterns that you're seeing around you in our culture and where, you live locally. And notice the patterns that are both like what I call interference patterns. They're the ones that are keeping us kind of operating at a lower frequency. So fear, shame, blame, othering, victim, greed, scarcity, I mean, they're a long list, struggle, fear, and what are the ones that are operating at a higher dimension, at a heart dimension? Again, the interference patterns aren't wrong. They're actually an indicator usually of when we're out of integration, when we're out of the beam, when something's off. But then also look for the patterns of like how things are working well, where the goodness is going on, where things like perseverance and connection and camaraderie and all of those things, like where are those happening? Because both are going to give you information. You can even apply this piece to your career. I was kind of thinking about it. I was just talking to a colleague the other day who I did some work with last year with one of our women's leadership cohorts, and he's since moved on to a different position. And we were talking about how our careers are like the spiral or like this path. And if we can like look back over the parts of our career and the positions we've had and where we've been, it gives you like information about your purpose and your path and what your part is to do. And I was sharing with him about how one of my first jobs, my second jobs was my first job actually. I worked for the Weather Channel as a sales assistant. And it's where I learned how to use Excel spreadsheets. It's where I learned how to do PowerPoint presentations. But it's also where I first started practicing Buddhism, and the office manager was Buddhist. He gave me my first copy of the Lotus Sutra, and I realized that I had a patience challenge. That I was challenged, that I was kind of impatient. I always wanted to be where I wasn't yet. And I'll tell you all, that pattern, that has stuck with me my whole life. When I first saw it, I was like, holy moly, I was born with that pattern. I remember being 5 years old and going to swimming lessons at the YMCA and not knowing how to tread water. So I was in the very, very beginning, class, and I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in the intermediates. So I just walked myself all over to the intermediate class without my kickboard. No one was watching me, so they didn't know to watch that I was okay. I jump in the water. There's no kickboard. I don't have the strength as a 5-year-old to get across. I don't really know how to tread water, and I make it halfway, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to drown. And I don't know how I got to the other side, but I did. And I walked back down to that beginner class, got my kickboard, and I didn't do that again. And I still have the paperwork from those classes, and I keep it so that I remember this pattern is a deep pattern in me. It's actually in my gene keys. And so it's part of my practice for my whole life. So those patterns can also be really helpful for you in so many ways, not as a thing that there's something wrong with me, but, this is mine to work with and be in relationship to. And I did a whole series on patterns. You can look through the library, the series library. It's on the series library page on femininepowertime.com, or you can find it on your app. Just look for the pattern series. And the inquiry that I would give you all is to look at if there's a project or an intention or a desire that you've been in, you've wanted to initiate, or you've been in co-creation with, that you want to bring in to more form. And maybe it's been stalled, maybe it's just not been time, maybe it's been going along, but not what you thought it would be. To just take a step back and look at what the pattern is that's in place. Like, what's the pattern in the project, in your life design, in your work design, that's kind of keeping it in place? And what do you desire instead? And what's the shift in the pattern that would support that? So I'll just slow that down for a second. Because, we're also doing this, you all, to support all of us as co-creators. I'm going to take a sip here out of my mug. Oh. And my blue tea mug that was gifted to me by a wise woman, because it's all about intuition and amplifying and stillness. And I have my blue candle for patience that I bought myself, a glass baby, and also a light blue one that was given to me, kind of green, from one of the Elevate Leadership Councils that's about true self. So taking a breath. I don't know if you're anything like me, you may be a bit impatient sometimes, frustrated that the things you don't understand why they're not already in form already, and why things aren't happening, why people don't understand, and why things are so hard, and why can't we just all be in love with each other, or at least get along? Noah goes to the grocery store often. Went this morning, actually. He's like, do you need anything? Do you want anything? And often my answer is, yes, world peace. So I'm just going to keep asking, keep asking. But one of the reasons, that we're also exploring these archetypes is because they're deeply connected to our own personal sustainability. And so this piece of, this patterning piece of, you can see the possibility, but the possibility may take a decade, 20 years or whatever. My friend Shasta always says, that's why we call it a lifetime of work, Christine. That's what you always say to me. It might take time. It will take time. But maybe there's in the cycle, like just to pick a project. There's one thing. It could be professional, personal, relational, home-based, just something that you want to shift in. Just take a minute and just kind of be like looking at it and like notice like what is the pattern here? And, like what is no longer serving me with that pattern, and what might it be time to shift into instead? And then how you can work with this kind of going forward is like, I would just write down that project like on a Post-it note or somewhere, and like put it on your desk, put it on your mirror, put it somewhere you can see it, and then just like tune in to it every day. And it will start to show you things because you're going to start working with the field. You're going to start to see the connections. And this is where your intuitive illuminator, along with your creatrix, like they get to have like a little party, They're like, yeah, party, co-creation party. Let's do it. Told y'all, gotta laugh, gotta smile, because we're not gonna make it otherwise. This is one of the co-creation practices. So this isn't just like, oh, that was a nice podcast, Christine. Like I'm inviting you to be in co-creation here with me. And then, not the whole thing though is we can't be attached to form and timing of how it works, but we can be in relationship to it. So that is my double dog dare for you around this one. We're going to move into the second one. All right. I move through the world best when I am connecting with others and I am connecting others with each other. Part of my creative power and success comes from my ability to connect with those I am here to connect with. Part of my creative power and success, and what really matters to me, comes from my ability to connect with those I am here to connect with. Now, here's the interesting thing. The intuitive illuminator, or the weaver connector, is across from the creatrix in the model of the feminine leadership archetypes. The creatrix sits in the northeast, and the weaver connector is in the southwest. So they're across from each other. And as I created and developed this model, I didn't, I placed them intuitively, but we used the 8 as like a compass in the north, the south, the west, the east, and then the cross quarter points. Because the wisdom is when you work with the elements and you work with natural rhythms and you build models based on them, then the elements and the natural rhythm works with you. So when I placed them all, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. There's a relationship between these two. And this is how it shows up for me. And I'm curious how this shows up for you. So how it shows up for me and what I've noticed in other people is we usually we'll have a proclivity to one or the other, to the weaver, connector, or the creatrix. And if they can get out of balance. So like for me in the past, I've been very focused on the creatrix. So I'm writing books, I'm creating models, I'm creating programs, I'm creating wisdom schools and collectives, I'm downloading bodies of work. That was creatrix all day long, along with the intuitive illuminator and probably a couple other ones. The advocate was probably in there. But she was like the weaver connector did not, she was weaving, but she wasn't connecting. So I was weaving in my storytelling, but my connector space got eaten up because I was so busy creating, I wasn't connecting. And I love connecting with amazing humans. So I have to just be careful of my balance between the two. And now in my life, I'm more focused on the weaver connector because I've created so much. But I also know that my creatrix needs projects, or she goes crazy, and she goes off the rails. So just kind of considering maybe the relationship between those two archetypes for you. And what I want to present for us today with this weaver connector is how essential this part is for all of us right now. One thing I think I know it, maybe I believe it, is that what we do and how we do what we're doing next, and next is happening now. It's not like next year and in 2 years, like we're living in the now and stabilizing in the now while we create and weave the next. But how we do this next, in this next era, 2,000, 2,500 years, 20 years, I'm just going to work with the 20 years for now. We have to do it. We don't have to. It is wise, and the way that we're going to create sustainable success in conscious connection and collaboration. So just take that in for a minute. What you're doing professionally, personally, relationally, in the work you want to bring into the world, and the intentions you have for yourself, for this world, for what matters to you, the way forward is not the lone wolf. It is not over self-reliance. It is not pushing forward and making it happen on our own. It is not the guru. It is not the single star. It is also not the invisible superhero or the invisible savior and martyr. And it's definitely not the hider of your gifts. It is time for every single one of us to rise into and reveal our vocation, our gifts, our presence, and live our designs so that we can create in different ways, much more like a beehive, much more like a wolf pack, where we get to have our sovereignty, but we also are in unity. It's like the orcas who live in 4 generations, and everyone has different roles, and our roles shift and change as we go through life cycles, but we don't, just throw out the old orca. She ain't what she used to be. She's very valuable even when she's 90. It's like there's an order and a harmony to conscious connection and collaboration, but we don't have a lot of models on how to do that, unfortunately, yet. But fortunately, you and we're here to actually experiment and explore over time. And I have been exploring and I have been experimenting at least consciously for a decade. And so I have some things I can share with you and kind of how to bring this into your life in all of the different parts. Because one thing I know for myself, when I slip into the frequency of isolation, I'm all on my own. I'm all alone. I have to go out and, figure this out, or, find the whatever. It just paralyzes me, depresses me. My attractor field gets low. I get wobbly. And so I have I have to come back to my practices of usually connecting to the divine, the 4 points of connection: divine, self, earth, and others, right? That's why we have the 4 points of connection as one of our practices. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look at chapter or section 2, Overwhelmed and Over It. as part of developing how, when in these moments we don't feel connected, one of the ways we do get connected, a practice is to actually ask ourselves, am I connected? And if we don't feel connected, what you do is you ask them, what kind of connection do I need? Is it connection to myself? Is it connection to others, individual or group? Is it connection to earth, physical realm, or is it connection to the divine, to source, to the universe? So that's a little practice that you can play with, small but mighty. So the power spectrum here to kind of think about, so again, think of the paddle, the kayak paddle, the infinity side. On the left-hand side, the feminine power is connection. On the right-hand side, the masculine power is competition. And this elevates into conscious collaboration. Now, here is the thing. Two things. One is we have to redefine competition. So the word competition, what the root of it actually means, to come around something. To come around something, and each person focuses on their part. Everyone's equally valuable, and then everyone rises and strengthens together because they're in the collective together. And we inspire each other to be even better than we can be, not having to replicate somebody, not having to have the person who's the star, but each of us playing our part and valuing all the parts, especially the invisible parts. So a lot of times when we think about competition, remember the power spectrums, if you're off the harmonizer, you're in distortion, is what we see as distorted power, distorted masculine power. Again, remember, it's not masculine, male, female. It's the energy within us. And we got to get this, you all. We really have to get this because it's part of how all of this exploration around gender and is one of, I'm not saying it's all of it, but part of it, it's moving us to break out of these paradigms and understand these energies within us that are, that the people have talked about forever. This isn't like a new thing, but that from the base level consciousness, people get all, you talk about men and women, and no, we're talking about energies within us, right? So the masculine competition, distorted, looks like king of the hill, survival of the fittest, best of the best, winner loser, connecting from the wounded challenge. Like, I gotta meet that challenge, That's the distorted masculine. But the distorted feminine is there too. It's codependence for connection. So distorted connection looks like codependence. Consensus decision making, where everybody has to be on board and then you never go anywhere because you're like an amoeba. And I love the leadership wisdom of, we don't need consensus, we need commitment. When I'm working with a team, that's kind of the motto. And I learned that from an amazing leader that I work with and coach. And I was like, that is really good. And I love that. I'm not sure where she learned it from, but it's wisdom. And so I share that with you. We don't need consensus. We do need commitment. And there's a great example of this. If you're ever if there's something you're like, what does that even look like? If you watch The Great Pottery Showdown, which is it's actually a show from the UK, and it's like the baking show, but it's for pottery. I love it so much. You can watch it also on Max, or maybe you can Google it or whatever. But it's like they all come together, like all the potters, and one leaves every week. But everybody gets better. Everybody gets better. And they support each other, they help each other. No one's trying to I have to be number one. It's really the closest example I have to this actually working. And what I know about how this is possible in the real everyday world that you and I live in is that the people that are participating in this kind of collaboration need to be conscious, need to be emotionally integrated, and need to have interdependence. So that sovereignty and unity is another really great power spectrum that's important. So it's not, because there's different kinds of collaboration. So this is another part I want to share with you all as you're kind of integrating this into your own understanding and then start to bring it in, look in your world. There's different kinds of collaborations. There's the kinds where, it's kind of like the best. And I see a lot of people have collaborations, and I've done this myself, where you get really excited and you meet somebody because you just like resonate. Because, that's the thing. It's like you resonate, like, oh, I resonate with you, and you resonate with me. And then you go off and you do something, and it blows up because the relationship isn't strong enough, or usually it's because the relationship isn't strong enough. Like you've just met for one date and now you're off to the races of creating something. We don't give ourselves the time to get to know each other. Or maybe we're resonant, but one person isn't integrated, and then stuff goes sideways. I've seen people start business partnerships together. And I always say, because I've had one, being in partnership is like getting married. And I don't recommend it unless you're really in for the long haul and that kind of an intense relationship. You can do projects together, collaborate, have a dance. You think of it like dancing, like before you get married, you get to know each other, you do a couple things together. And so as we look at this, we're like, okay, like I'm an independent wolf, but I want to be part of the pack, or I'm an orca, but I want to be, part of the pod, and I want to, live in the ecosystem, is to know a couple things. One is that resonance is everything. It's just everything in any relationship, personal or professional. And resonant is like two instruments, playing with each other. And it does take time. When I started the Elevate Feminine Leadership Councils, and it came into the world with 3 other women, we met every other week for a year and a half before it actually came into form. It was so much fun. We birthed something out of nothing, and each of us brought our parts, and we were in process together. When I was in a business partnership with my former business partner, Amy, we started just by going for walks and hikes and getting to know each other. And then we're like, hey, we have this like common thing. You want to teach a class together. And so this was when online classes were just starting back in 2010. And so we said, sure. And we went to the coffee shop and we wrote down what became the process for Reform Your Inner Mean Girl, which eventually became a program and a school and then a book. On a napkin. We wrote the 8 steps down on a napkin, and we just did it together. And then we did it again, and then we did it again, and then money started to happen, and we're like, oh, we got to do something with the money, and we ran it through one person's business, and then we're like, wow, this is growing. Maybe we should go into partnership together, and we did, and we were in partnership for 5 years, and we both learned a lot, and then we dismantled our partnership. And that was the path that we took. I work with other people who've been in business partnership for 20 years, and it's been really successful. But there's a lot of different ways to do this. And I think also I notice this with people I work with that maybe are, doing consulting and leaving their corporate jobs. And they think that it's like understanding that there's a way of creating these collaborations that aren't, it's just different, I guess, as I would say. So however those collaborations are happening for you, to look for resonance, even with groups. If you think about the groups you want to be in connection to, sometimes we try it out for a little while, and then we're like, ooh, something's off. Ooh, something's kind of off there. So resonance is everything. 2, simpaticos and synergy. So this is where whether this is personal or professional or local or community, the thing I know about when this works is there's alignment and we're serving similar purposes. There's alignment around the mission and the purpose, and we're serving similar purposes. Each of us focused on our part, and it's almost like the parts come together because sometimes we kind of need each other to be able for those parts to activate. And to just know that you can really like someone, and that doesn't mean that you're meant to collaborate. But I don't think that it would be good to collaborate with people who you don't really like. I'm just saying, I'm sure you could find, for me, this is where you have to kind of think about it for yourself. So, the practice here is, so you got looking for patterns for the first one. This one's about looking for resonance. And this is why I do wise women teas or why being teas, we just get together and we just talk and what are you doing? And what are you doing? And we're just kind of looking for resonance, and sometimes you're getting some information or you're conversating and things are starting to open up. And sometimes there might be something that leads to something else. But while you're looking with patterns, play with the resonance. And here's the kind of inquiry piece that I'm going to give you for this one. But before I give it to, I'm going to give it to you, then let me give you this piece because I got to take you a level deeper. It's going to touch in the deeper part, and then we'll do the third piece, and then I'm going to not do the fourth piece until the next podcast. This is a question, the inquiry I want you to sit with. How do I discern between aligned and not aligned collaborations and connections? How do I discern between aligned and not aligned collaborations and connections? That's a worthy inquiry. Because your mind, your body, and your heart will all tell you different things. And the thing I want to say about this piece is that this weaver connector, she will bring up this way of working. I move through the world best when I'm connecting with others, and my creative power and success comes from my ability to connect with those I'm here to connect with. This brings up our wounds, or what I call our love cracks. And so this can bring up, and this is a nice segue into our third and last piece here, this can bring up rejection. I reach out, I invite people, I get rejected. It brings out all kinds of things. And so it's a tender place. I was just talking, it's part of the Flow Feminine Wisdom Way collective. There are these call them satellite councils that gather. They're self-regulated, and I happen to be in one of them that's been together for 10 years, as long as we've been doing the Feminine Wisdom Way collective. And we were together, and we meet every 2 weeks or twice a month. And we were talking about our tender spots. And your tender spots are, these love cracks happen that cause the deeper, that shame, blame, isolation, rejection, need to be seen, need to be valued, need to be heard, need to belong, needy, right? We all have those. And then we have these experiences that were really painful in the past. And then so when we start to put ourselves out there, we start to go out into the world and we start to connect and we start to, invite people in, and things then all of the C's come up, the comparison comes up, and the criticism of others and ourselves, not feeling like we're enough because we still have tender spots. We can do all this healing work. And I said, which was good. We want to heal. We got to get out that stuff that's in there, replace it with love and all the different kinds of love, compassion, acceptance, gratitude, etc. And then there's still tender spots that are going to be there in your heart. I read a whole poem about this called The Tender Spot. And they're it's kind of like if you break your leg or break your ankle or something, and there's always a weakness. It's like our hearts. So I'm stretching myself to connect even more, in not just more, but expand my own connections. And we're going to go into number 3, but it brings up stuff for me. So I just want to, say, sometimes for that means you'll say yes to things that aren't aligned. And sometimes it means that you'll cut something off too fast. And so just notice those two, and notice and bring it back into your own heart. This is the inner alchemy of the heart. That when we talk about the feminine superpowers and so many of these things, it's how we elevate. No one gets out of this if you're going to really elevate. And so just start to notice that. And also, where might you be driven by distorted competition or distorted connection? That masculine, feminine side. you'll learn a lot about yourself, and it'll really support you in what you want to co-create in this world. Okay, here's the last one. I don't connect to get anything from anyone. I connect simply because it's the natural thing to do, and I trust that life and source will do the rest. Don't connect to get anything from anyone. I connect simply because it's the natural thing to do. Y'all, this is like the best thing since sliced bread. I don't even know. I guess I know why sliced bread is the best thing, because you can make sandwiches, because there was a time, I guess, on the planet, y'all, that you couldn't make sandwiches. Could you even imagine a time, even if you don't eat bread, before sandwiches? It's a real thing. So it is. We're going to use the metaphor. Weird English and American metaphors. I wonder if all cultures and languages have weird metaphors. So weird. Okay. Game changer, as my friend Robin would say. Okay, so just mind shift here. We weave weaver connector. So we weave and connect, not network. And here's the difference. You can, of course, choose to do whatever you want, but I'm going to give you the feminine perspective here. Networking is about think where it comes from, the word network. It's about information, transportation. It's the computer highway. It's about transactional exchanges. So think about it. You go to a big meeting and a big event, and who I got to meet, I got to get the car, and I got to do this. I got to network. Got to keep my network alive. And it's a freaking exhausting. And I don't know about you, but I think it kind of sucks. I think because it just has in it like this energy of I'm networking with you to try to get something with you. And I don't really find that it's working in the level of resonance. And I'm not saying that all people are doing it to like be greedy or just trying to get and not give in exchange. But there's this give and get thing that's inherent in the whole paradigm of networking. Versus kind of going back to where we started, where I said, remember the wisdom teaching is that we're born with these red threads to know who we're here to connect with. Like it's already there in the field. We just have to make the connections and listen. We're connected to Indra's net, which we each are a beautiful light on. And if we are, if we're operating and we're attuning to our frequency and our design, and we're keeping our attractor fields clean and clear, and we're open in our heart and our mind and our body and our spirit, we will find our simpaticos. We will, hit some shit and maybe have resistance, but instead of running away or, judging other people, we'll slow down and figure out what's going on. And so in connecting, what I love about connection, just think about the word versus networking. Connecting is about creating a symbiotic connection through mutually supportive relationships. Think tree and mushrooms. Think tree and lichen. Think, stones and lichen. Like they work together. They go together. They're symbiotic. I think of a person who's been a mentor and a check-in for myself. Her name is Bobby, and I met her 20 years ago when I worked at the Gap, and we, talk every year or two, and now we have virtual teas. But it's a connect to connect. And I don't connect with her to get something from her. I connect with her because it's what I'm called to do. And sometimes things come out of that are very subtle or insightful. Sometimes material things happen from that. But people can feel your energy. You feel that in people's energy if they're wanting to connect with you or they're wanting to network with you. But then in that connection, think of it more, like in the feminine, it's about how things naturally grow. So in the feminine, when the feminine is present, the feminine and masculine work together, the power spectrum is give and receive. Give and receive. And that elevates to, it's kind of a mouthful, co-generative reciprocity. Co-generative reciprocity. So what that means, co-generative, is both people are showing up and bringing energy to the relationship. And there's a reciprocity that's just inherent in that. And that doesn't mean, it's not the power spectrum isn't give and take. It's give and receive. And so this is where it's like not a 50-50 relationship. Like it's not always happens in time, but we're operating in this co-generative. And this is something that I made a stand for. And I'm going to share this with you in case you want to do this. I did this at the beginning of, it was last year or the year before, during the Emerge visioning process that we've been doing for the last 10 years and are going to continue to do it because it's so powerful. I made a stand and I said, I'm only having co-generative relationships from this point forward. And it's been so amazing. It's been so amazing. And so lovely as an intention that I've been working into reality. And so what that does for us when that happens is there's no chasing. There's no asking to get something. There's no cold calling. You're connecting. You are connecting. And in the superpower of connection, one of the things that we teach and practice is we trust that the divine, the universe, source, whatever your cosmology is the switchboard operator. That life and Indra's net, they're making the connections that are really meant to align and amplify and magnify and, create some good stuff. And, saying, oh, nope, not this way. You've heard the saying, the door closes, not that door, not that connection. And that doesn't mean that person, you have to X them out of your life and like, they're dead to me. It just means, oh, yeah, okay, well, that's a different level of relationship and connection. And that's cool. And I'm just gonna, we can stay, in connection and or, not. And so it's so freeing. And so here's the practice. So you have so far looking for the patterns, looking for the resonance. And this one is cultivate and care for your web of connections. And then connect for support and synergy and conversating without attachment. So what this looks like, this is such a good time to do it, this Kiva time that we're in right now, or at the start of a new year, but you can do it at any time, is stop to pause and look around and just like, what is my web of connection? And I always like to say my web of connection and my web of support. I like to look at both of them kind of side by side. There's overlap in them, but they're also a little bit different. Where like the web of connection is like that broader web of who I'm connected to in this net of people and the kinds of people. Like it's going to be fun to just group them together. And then support is like, where you're getting the support from. Sometimes it's your personal support. Sometimes it's your team support. And then there's, they do overlap. But I always like to start when I'm like, it's like, who is that? Who are these? What is this web of support already in connection? You could draw it out, like just draw two circles that kind of intersect and do one is like, this is my web of connection and this is my web of support, and start to look at the commonalities and the people and the groups that are there. And then as you look forward into this next cycle, could be the next year cycle, is a great one to work with. Who do I desire in my web of connection and support in this next year cycle? This is where the Weaver connector, like her superpower is. You have to be able to see it and feel it in order to co-create it. And you got to give language to it. This is the practice of co-creation and see it visually. This is why when we do our Emerge process every year, we create these vision books that have the words and image and color on them, or why I have I'll put things up on my wall and so I can see them and just map it out. Visual thinking really, really works. And so take the space to do that, or just go for a walk and get it into your body. Who is here? And what do I want more of? And then like a practice you can do is each moon cycle coming back or each week even, but each moon cycle, each week saying, who can I connect with that is extending into the people I do want to have in my life that I don't have in my life. And then where are the maintaining relationships that I really want to keep that connection? Because this is going back to where we started, you all. I don't know why. I just really feel this with every part of my bone and my being and my heart. This is about going forward connection. Sovereignty and the unity, raising into conscious collaboration, healthy interdependence and interconnection, and valuing all of the life cycles. You've heard me share this piece of wisdom that was gifted to me. When the women turn toward each other and the generations unite, the cauldron of co-creation will ignite. And I would expand that to when the humans turn toward each other and the generations unite, the cauldron of co-creation will ignite. That's our way through this time. And that's where the heat is on, not to bring forth a very strange 1980s song. Do you all know that song? The heat is on. Oh my God. Whoa, we got to wrap it up, y'all. It's cracking me up. Okay, so the last part of the Weaver connector is I weave my connections into being through my connections to all life and the divine. And so we'll come back for that one, because that one really pairs well with personal sustainability. And that's kind of been my promise to you all, is in my commitment to do one episode that would be specific to downloading, kind of bringing forth the archetype and really focusing on the power and presence and how that elevates us into our purpose. And then another one that's really focused on personal sustainability. So it'll be good. I can bring in some of the real practical parts of how we do this going forward in rhythm, and how we weave, and what co-creation looks like, and how you stay in relationship to the field and all of that. So just take a breath for a moment and just let yourself settle in. And just see if you can tune in to one thing that really resonated for you, or that you're really taking with you. You can, of course, come back and re-listen to this. But just for a moment, there's one thing that really, 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 really kind of landed, or just piqued your interest. For mine, it was just really feeling it in my body, the resonance in my heart. And I'm also reminded of a piece of wisdom that seems good for all of us. From I'm all blissed out with the Weaver connector. From Rumi, which is, remember that what you are seeking is also seeking you. What you are seeking, my love, is also seeking you. What you are seeking is also seeking you. And you are here to co-create and be in collaboration. Look for resonance, see the patterns, trust the alignment of what is right and what is not resonant. Don't be in a rush. Allow there to be space. Tune into and tap into that overview channel to really allow yourself to allow the wisdom to come through. And remember, you're not alone. We are in this together. I encourage you to share this podcast with one other person and invite them to share with you what really came up. And also invite each other to be part of your web of connection or web of support for each other. You'd be surprised at how many people are just waiting for an invitation. So thanks for being here, sending you much love, and we'll see you soon. Much love.